Acknowledge their elders, past, present and emerging, and their deep spiritual connection to this land. And indeed, we acknowledge all of our First Peoples, wherever they may be and on whichever land you might be viewing this from. There are a number of things that I'd like to say to start off with. Number one, Helena is very keen to sell you some tickets for the upcoming choir performance. Helena is over on the eastern side of the church and would be very pleased to see you at the end of the meeting. It is possible for you to buy the tickets by contacting the church office, but it would be really good if you do intend to come for you to purchase the tickets as soon as you can, so that we might know what to do and how to set up this church space. Before I begin the meeting, I'll sit down if that's okay. Before I begin the meeting, I'd like to issue a couple of apologies. It seems that over recent times, my emails have not been going everywhere that they should. It's got something to do with, I think, an issue of graphics. And so during last week, I sent an email out with an unadorned information, and then I sent out some additional papers that became available. I don't know how it happened, but many of you will have got two of each. I'm sorry about that. I'm also very cross with myself because one of the attachments was in fact a duplication of the other. I had saved the two documents. I saved the same document as two names, and so I then had to send out a further email by way of apology that provided you with the minutes of the last congregation. I've got no excuse for my incompetence. I do, however, apologise for the deluge that you have received. We will try to get to the bottom of the issue so that you'll be able to receive my lovely signature and everything, etc. You will have received, either in print or electronically, the papers that are required for this congregation meeting. The congregation meeting will be in two parts. We will have the business of the congregation, a brief financial report and some other information, and then we will go into the third part of our Spring into Action process, which will be led by some of the people who have been working on the working group. But can I start the meeting by acknowledging your presence here, either in the church or online, and acknowledge that I have received a number of apologies. If you think that I haven't received those apologies from people you know to be unable to attend, could you please speak to Craig at the end of our meeting? By way of information, our decisions will be made using the normal process of the Uniting Church, which is consensus decision making. You will be familiar with the orange and blue cards. Orange is a card that you put up if you are warm to the proposal that is being put. Blue is if you are cool to it. Now, those of you who are particularly observant might also see a yellow card. It's been the practice in recent times at synod meetings to use a process that was adopted by the New South Wales Synod. Rather than putting the blue card up if you've got questions, they began the process of using a yellow card. So if you've got a question at any time and feel that you would like more information before you can make a decision about how you feel, then that's when you use a yellow card. By way of also further information, there are some documents on the tables that Mary has distributed to the table facilitators. Among them, there's stuff that will be called upon, and you will be asked to refer to during the meeting. So I'll just spend some time later talking about that. But before I proceed, are there any questions with anything that I have said so far? No. Okay. So, as is our usual practice, we need to affirm the adoption of the agenda that we will be using today. You have a copy of that, or you had a copy of that. Can I see your warmth or otherwise at adopting the agenda as it has been provided?
That's consensus.
Thank you. I see no blue cards. We have consensus. Yes, we have consensus. Now, thank you to Craig for a very fulsome record of our last meeting. Those of you who were present will know that we dealt with some very, very important matters that in fact were the genesis for the working group and the spring into action. Having had a chance to look at the minutes, can I ask you if there are any questions or queries? You might like to put up your yellow cards if you do have any questions or queries.
Can't see any cards, Bruce.
Thank you. We have no questions. So then can I ask you to indicate your warmth or otherwise at accepting these minutes as a true and accurate record of our last congregation meeting? We have consensus. Yes, we have consensus. Now the next thing is the finance.
Yes, financial report.
Financial report brought to us, a brief financial report brought to us by Carol. Thank you very much for this, Carol. There will be accompanying slides on the screen for you to help understand what's being said. Thanks, Carol.
This is just a very brief report, given that time is of the essence today. I did some figures for the last consultation to show that we would have a deficit, I think, of about $29,000. I've redone that, and the deficit now will be a bit greater than that. Lots of reasons for that. There's not much we can do about it at this stage, but could I remind everybody, please, that we are also in the middle of preparing the budget for 2023, and because we need to have some figures on what our income may be next year, I'm encouraging everybody as soon as they can to return the forms that came out with your Spring into Action papers at the last consultation. It's important so that we can get a reasonable idea of what our income might be. So could I please encourage everybody, if you've not done so, to do that as soon as possible, to give them to the office or give them to me. And once again, I assure you that it is private. Privacy and confidentiality is utmost. I am the only person that will have that information for the time being, and then it will be deleted. So if I could encourage people to do that, please. We know that the position this year as far as our budget deficit was not rosy, and looking at the moment what we're doing for 2023, it's not improving. So I just encourage everybody to have a bit of a think about that. I can't really see that very well, Mary, so I think I might just... what I've done there is just our anticipated what our electronic giving might be to the end of this year, what the envelopes might be to the end of this year, and what our expected expenditure is. And that we've come at the deficit, I think, was that $31,000, which is better than the budgeted deficit of $51,000. So if we could please just consider that, that's one of the reasons we are here today. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. Chris Ailes. We're not having much luck with mics today, are we?
Carol, if we have adjusted our e-give on the forms that you just asked about being returned, is it our responsibility to have that changed, or is that done through the office?
If with your e-give, this is talking about UC Invest e-give, where you have signed a form and that amount will be directly debited to your bank account monthly or fortnightly, whatever you choose. All you need to do there is phone UC Invest. They will ask you your name, your date of birth to verify who you say you are, and just give them verbally over the telephone your renewed commitment, and they will take it from there. So that is for the UC Invest e-give. And if you just do an electronic funds transfer directly into our bank account from your bank account, then I encourage you to just go in and change that to whatever your decision is to for currently. And if anybody has envelopes, that is information that we are not privy to. So therefore, it is very difficult for the finance team or myself to discover how much we are going to get through envelopes. If you feel comfortable, please just let me know so that I can take that into account. Once again, your privacy will be protected. But if you're an envelope taker, please, if you feel comfortable, just let me know. Is that okay, Chris? Good. Any more? Then, if not, I'll sit down. Thank you. Another slide. Right, okay. This slide is for the unexpended expenses to the end of December in conjunction with the budget. Administration, there's at least another $5,000. Property, $12,000, and that covers rates and taxes and electricity and gas and maintenance. And audiovisual, now there it says audiovisual 8,000, but this was to the end of August. Since then, the audiovisual will be reduced because they have purchased lighting. So that has reduced by about another $5,000. So if we look at the projected income to the end of the year, where there will be a deficit of $7,700 just in the income, and the unexpended expenses, which we anticipate will be used, that will leave us a deficit at the end of this year of $34,000 odd. So You know, I hate being the bearer of gloom and doom, but it's not looking good. That's it. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. The next item is a brief update about student accommodation. Thank you, Anne.
We have 2 vacancies for next year, but I've had about, I think I'm up to 11 applications. So some of them have dropped off because, you know, one's deferred and one's changed their mind or whatever. So I'm just going down the list. So it's looking good for a full house. Maybe I could have filled 3, but anyway, we've got 2. And I spoke to one of the mums who, you know, they're very effusive about the houses, and everyone's been getting on so well, and it's really good, and so it's good to hear. I spoke to an ex-student who wanted to come back, and I said, look, I've got so many others. Maybe since you're not green anymore, you might like to do something else. She said, yeah, I get that. But she sent me, I'd asked her to, when she left, to send me a paragraph about why it was good, and so that'll be in the little brochure soon. So she just said what a great step it was. So it's really good that we can provide that step for the kids who come from country areas and let them settle into a bit of city life while they're studying. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. And it is actually good. One of the things that we've been frustrated about just over the time since the new houses have been built is during rainstorms along the eastern edge of the eastern courtyard home, the gutters would overflow even in reasonably light rain. But we've been able to rectify that. And so that is one issue less. But there are a lot of weeds in the garden because, of course, there's a lot of rain lately. So that's going to have to be done something with. So we're sorting that out. But thank you very much to Anne. And you know, the houses that we've got next door are a consequence of decisions made by this body in the past. Before I hand over to the working group, can I just say that today is an absolutely iconic example and reason for us to be dealing with this matter now. The fact that we were able this morning to provide a place for and a space that enabled baptism to occur, baptism for a child and for an adult. A time when we could worship together apart, and a time when we could hear the word of God as clearly articulated as it was this morning, is one of the reasons why we are continuing to leave no stone unturned to explore how it is that we might continue to be a presence for God and for good in the community. This is the third tranche, I guess, the third event in the Spring Into Action process. We had the consultation, which I viewed online and participated at a distance. I'm really pleased to be here today. We've had the opportunity for people, as Carol reminded you, to respond to God's generosity by considering your regular giving. A little later in the service, a little later in the meeting, there will be information that you will be asked to consider and respond to. There's been a late addition to the papers that you have been provided with. That is a gold sheet. This is your golden opportunity to consider participation in a team, in the team structure. We, as you know, rely heavily on teams within the in the life of Morialta. And while things might change, I'm not sure. At the moment, we have the teams that are presently described. If you and we need to say that there are some teams that don't have team leaders, and while they are working as efficiently and as effectively as they can, obviously it would be really good for them to have a team leader. We also need team members. So if you feel that you have got some energy to provide for working in leadership, in this leadership of our congregation, can I ask you to put your name on that gold sheet and to indicate the teams that you might be interested in, whether you might like to be considered as a team leader or indeed a team member. There's also opportunity for you to circle activities that you might be involved in. We rely heavily on people who already facilitate activities through the week, and we acknowledge them, and we hope that they will continue to provide that leadership. But if you would like to either become a member of that group or those groups, or in fact actually perform some sort of leadership function, then this is your opportunity as well. We give our money in stewardship, but we also give our time and talents. Please consider that as you listen to and participate in this next section of the meeting. Importantly, the facilitators, the table facilitators, and you will be given tasks to do, and I'm not going to speak much more about that. But if you aren't at a table, can I please encourage you to sit with a group, because you will be given opportunity to feed into the business of this meeting. We're going to move this table, and people will be concentrating on the lectern. I'm going to hand over to members of the working group now, and I will come back at the close of that particular section for other parts of the meeting. But thank you very much. Can I hand over to the working group members? Thank you. Now we might move this over there. Yes. Morialta, yes. It's not an exhaustive list, but thank you very much. If you feel inclined to provide to make yourself available to that, or in fact anything else that might have been missed, please write it as is on the golden opportunity sheet. It says if there are other things that aren't included, list them and circle them. But thank you, Mari, for that. Very important.
Ruth was the other.
And Ruth.
I'm confused because at the top it says if you're only willing to work in leading or planning. So if you just want to participate and not lead, do you not put your ring around these things?
On the other side, it's a double-sided golden opportunity, and so if you're wanting to participate in the life of the congregation at other times other than Sundays, so you just circle there, okay?
No, you haven't cleared my mind.
Well,
so if I want to be on the flower roster, but I don't want to lead it,
no, just circle it.
I don't circle it.
No, if you want to be on the flower roster, circle it. If you want to participate in Tai Chi, circle it. If you want to participate, we have leaders for Tai Chi. If you're already on it, that's fine. Look, if you've got any confusion, if there's any confusion, I would be really happy to answer the questions at the end of the meeting. I don't want to take more time now than we perhaps need. But please, if you've got any questions, contact me either at the end of the meeting or at some other time. But what we're trying to do is to provide an opportunity for you to be reminded about the many activities that occur across the life of the church. We're looking for people, for teams, but we're also encouraging people to participate in fellowship and in Tai Chi, to participate in the workshop, to participate in gateways, etc., etc. And if there's anything that hasn't been put down, apologies, put it down. Now, we'll just... Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bruce. I refer you to the report from the working group. I stand here now representing the working group who prepared this report. That's Mary, Bob, Bruce, Lachlan until he went on paternity leave, and myself. I also represent council who have endorsed this report for your consideration, so let's do that. Earlier in this meeting, we endorsed the minutes of our April meeting, so you should all be aware of how this process started back with the alarming budget that was presented at that meeting. You've had the opportunity to read our report. It's come out online. There are copies on the table, and so I just want to highlight some of the salient points there. The working group, spent our early meetings working out how we could best approach our task while fully engaging the congregation as a whole. We decided on 2 simultaneous courses of action. One of those was the stewardship program. You've been reminded of that in Carol's report here a few minutes ago. Our regular giving is our church's primary source of income. The congregation have not been challenged to reconsider our giving over the past 5 years, and one way of reducing a budget deficit is to increase your income, and that was part of our motivation for this part of the program, during which Bob conducted several worship services on the theme of giving in response to Bob's love. We've all had the Spring Into Action brochure and response sheet that went along with that, and therein the opportunity to indicate our giving and commitment intentions. It's time to bring those into action. The other course of action was to conduct 2 consultations with as many of the congregation as we could encourage to participate. So I thank you all for your involvement in the first consultation a few weeks ago and this second one here and now. Over 60 people participated in that first one, most here in person, some online, and generated over 150 suggestions about how we might take further action in extending the life of our church. The first consultation, since the first consultation, the working group have been toiling to try and find a way of organising, bringing together all those suggestions, to make them manageable. We found 5 major themes that emerged from the suggestion, and those are listed in dot points on page 2 of the report. We found a good number of you talked about keeping Morialta going as a church, as a worshipping community, and to try to grow it. Also, to define Morialta as a progressive church, a spacious church, and by spacious we mean one that has room for a range of different people, a range of different theologies, a range of different beliefs, a range of different backgrounds, so open and hospitable. To continue using our strong audio-visual commitment to provide high-quality worship experience and other events for those who are unable to attend our centre in person. To make more income-generating use of our physical facilities, our buildings, our land. And to be a focal point of and a resource for our local community. So those themes emerged. There was also another way of looking at it in terms of which jobs could be done fairly quickly, those which might take a little longer, and those which were more long-term. And so we also refer you, in terms of the church that we would like to be, to our vision statement and the descriptions that were presented in the Spring Into Action brochure and are included in the report as a lead-in to these recommendations. So what we tried to identify from the suggestions that came from the first consultation was to identify what our core ministry might be. And there is a recommendation there for your consideration shortly that covers 6 points. Those which are there on the screen now. Worship and spirituality, an emphasis on the practices which nurture a spiritual attitude and approach in worship, in living in our church life and our church service. And by service there, double meaning, church services and in our service to the community, to the wider world. The online ministry to continue streaming worship and expanding where possible our online formats. For seniors, worship and relevant activities there. For children and young adults, worship and again relevant activities. Continuing with multi-faith activities, initiatives and connections across different faith groups in our community, recognising that in many cases we all acknowledge the one God, the spirituality that goes with that. We make reference to that often in our Ghana acknowledgement. So to look at a breadth of connections there. And actions for justice, social justice in forms of refugees, recent arrivals, groups who bring who experience in their lives a different form of sexuality, other groups in need, environmental issues, initiatives and opportunities for support and engagement in those directions. These 6 recommendations, and these constitute actual recommendations for the meeting, are about to be put to this meeting for discussion and your confirmation or otherwise. This will provide a chance for us to say whether or not we like the idea of our church focusing on these courses of action, and Bruce will be chairing that process in a minute. We'll then move into a different sort of decision making about which actions might be taken early, that is pretty much as soon as we can, or soon, they might flow into next year, and some longer term projects and partnership possibilities. You have on your tables, I believe, enough response sheets for everyone. The response sheet is quite extensive. It lists a whole range of activities. I don't apologise for that long list. They emerged from the 150 suggestions that you made in the previous consultation. And you are not expected to obviously put your name down against all of them, put your name on the sheet and tick which ones you might be interested in, but Mary will take us through that in more detail later. And there is another sheet on your table which extends those courses and provides a bit more information, quite a bit more information on to inform you so that you can make an informed decision there. So, Bruce, do you wish to lead us through this next stage of the process?
Thank you, Chris. As Chris has said, there will be a number of opportunities for you as table groups to consider information that's before you. We feel that that is the best way of doing it because that provides the most opportunity for people to feed into the process. Our task now is to consider those 6 areas, those 6 significant areas that were distilled from the information that was collected as a consequence of our first consultation. Can I ask you as table groups to look at those, to decide if there are any on that list that you think, well, no, we don't want to do that. And to actually think about what that might mean for us as a community. There are many things that you're going to be hearing today, but hopefully we will get some answers. So I think if we say we give you 3 to 5 minutes for you to talk in table groups and decide whether there's anything on that list of ministry areas that you don't resonate with, then we'll come back as a group. Thank you. Is that clear? Yes? Good. I affirm by saying, sorry, there are the 6 areas. Now, we will assume that, I'm assuming that there's resonance there for all of those. What we're wanting to make sure of is that that is the case. So we're going to be requiring you at the end of the time to affirm the 6 areas as part of our future together. Thank you. How are we going? Are you all able to come back to this? Now, are there any questions that anybody has from any of the table groups? Something over there? If you put your yellow cards up, if you've got a question.
Sorry, I haven't got a question, but I've got a suggestion with the online ministry. You know how we letterbox people for the market?
Yes.
To advertise in the market. On the bottom of that flyer, could we put the link for our online ministry? Because there might be people living locally who would like to watch our service but don't know about it.
Thank you. Yes, I think that everything we put out should have our website on it with an invitation to the people to worship. Now, what we're wanting, is there any questions about any of those 6 areas? Yes, Brian. Just.
Thanks, John. We just had a collective thought that, like Ruth was just saying, we wondered whether in that range of items that we talked there, we don't really identify ourselves with community. In other words, should we have more exposure to the community that are using our facility, that we have all of these facilities? If you sort of follow, we're talking about individuals, we're saying the worship, the online ministry, seniors, we're talking about that. But what about community, the passing community? Are people aware of what we're doing?
Brian, thanks for that clarification. I won't speak for the working group, but I think that the working group were hoping that was implied. And if you didn't get the idea that we are committed, we are trying to get a commitment from the congregation to work in the lives of individuals and of groups, and not just inside but outside the doors of our church. In fact, our community, the passing trade, so to speak. I think that's a given, isn't it? But thank you for that clarification.
If that's a given, we should be saying it somewhere.
Well, it is part of our vision statement, and it is part of the clarification. But certainly, we will make sure. I think we will make sure that it is more clearly articulated. And can I ask that? Do you all understand that clarification? That we're not just talking about people here, we're talking about the community, the people outside our church, so to speak. Okay? Having said that, as part of your table group, was there any of those areas that you thought shouldn't be on the list? Put your yellow cards up if you. In the absence of yellow cards, and we are therefore, I'm assuming we're affirming those 6 areas. So please, could you indicate as a congregation your affirmation of those 6 areas? Yeah, you've got a yellow card.
I've got a yellow card, not because I don't think, because there's something up here we shouldn't have, which is what Bruce asked, but I've got a clarification question.
Yes.
Still.
Yep.
On the online ministry, the word expanding, I would like to know if that means expanding infrastructure and effort, or expanding the reach, the number of people who we get to, or both, because I have a different view depending on which of those is the case.
It's both and.
Both and, okay.
But in all of this, these things require commitment from within the congregation, either a recommitment or a new commitment, because just as you can't get blood out of a stone, we're not going to necessarily be able to expand our offerings unless we get other people who are prepared to come in and help. Now that might be people from outside this congregation who see the need for and the dream of an expanded online service. But it is something that we are committed to, and we want to find out if there is a will and a want to do it. We're not trying to do more with less. What we're trying to do is to identify the fact that there are things that are important to us, and as a consequence of them being important to us, we think they should be important to other people. So, is there another yellow card?
Yes. There was a big query on this table about multi-faith.
Yes.
We just don't see what it means, really.
Right. Well, is it okay if I speak, or do you want... we already have a relationship with the Dawari Bora group. Now, that's not without its challenges, but it is a sign to our community of our openness and our willingness to participate in the life of the community. Now, there are other mainline world religions that might be looking for a place to worship and to meet. And just as we meet on Sundays and through the week, and as at the moment the Dawari Bora group meet at different times during the year, we feel that just as we worship that triune God and the Dawari Bora community worship their universal God, there are other opportunities for us to engage with those other communities. It may not happen, but if we don't have it on the list, it won't happen. Does that make sense? Any other yellow cards? Thank you, Ruth.
Do we still have school chaplaincy? Because I'm thinking school chaplaincy is a way because all faiths will be involved in the school. Members of all faiths might have problems, and a school chaplain could help people from other faiths as well as,
Thank you,
Christians.
Ruth.
So is that
certainly
still happening?
Look, I don't know. We certainly, the McGill Interchurch Council was for a long time responsible for the provision of Christian pastoral support workers. All right.
Right. Ruth, the answer to the question is the McGill Interchurch Council closed down last year, and it closed down because the churches that were currently in that council, which were the Anglicans, the Church of Christ, the Lutherans, the Catholics, and the Protestants, and us, we didn't get enough support from all of the congregations relating to those churches to continue with us being the sponsors of those chaplains. The chaplains that still exist, that we were paying the money for, are the primary school, the high school, and the youth detention centre out at Cavan. They are still being funded. But because we had such lack of, and I get a bit emotional about this because this was a pretty big baby for me, because of the lack of support we got from within all of those churches, the McGill Interchurch Council took the decision last year to close down. All of the money that we had invested and with UC Invest was then transferred to the schools ministry group, who have in this state overall responsibility for all of the chaplains in this state. So all of that money was transferred to them, but it is used ongoing for the chaplains for the 3 schools that we were supporting. And that was a substantial amount. It was about $45,000. Yep. And we have a memorandum of understanding with the schools ministry group regarding that. And at such times as when and if the federal government, and they're talking about this, supporting the National Chaplaincy Program, then we have given the schools ministry group permission to use that in the best way they can, funding chaplains for this state.
Thanks, Carol. Look, the thing... Certainly, Ruth, it is really important. What we're trying to do at this time and in this small space of time is to actually develop an understanding of principles. What we want is for people to have a heart for providing support for chaplaincy, etc., and so on, to actually put their names down on the sheet that will be referred to in a little while. But at the moment, what we're wanting is not a commitment to, an acceptance of, a confirmation for those 6 areas, those 6 major areas that were distilled out of the material and the ideas that came from, and the comments that came from the last consultation. So can I ask for your warmth or otherwise at continuing to affirm those 6 areas? Yes, blue card. John.
As a list of aspirational objects or core ministries, I have no problem. My problem is, how are we going to resource them?
Right.
And so far, to my knowledge, there has been no information given to us on what and how we are going to resource these areas. I do not, as a belief statement, from what I see, I do not believe we can resource all 6. And I think we're jumping the gun here a bit, because we are being asked today to see what we are committed to. So how can we vote on something that is core ministries when we don't even know what sort of human resources we have committed to them? So I'm afraid I cannot proceed. I have to blue card this resolution of adopting these until I have a better understanding or more information on how we are going to resource them.
Thanks, John. Certainly, as I've tried to explain, these are aspirations. These are things that came as a consequence of the first consultation, and they are presented for your information. As I said, they require resourcing, and we don't know whether there will be enough resources for all of these things. But they remain as 6 areas that are on the heart of Morialta, and I take your point, and I recognise that we've got gaps already, and we might have more gaps over time. But if we don't have those as aspirations, then we run the risk of contracting. But have you got some more wisdom, Chris?
Well, I don't know about wisdom, but I'll try to explain. This is the overall picture of what we would like to do. The next part of this process over the next hour or whatever will be whether we'll identify whether in fact we are able to do all this. I hope, John, we'll meet to provide the answer to your question. One, we've got the overall situation. Now we get into the specifics with the questionnaire about each of those activities, and if there is no one who's prepared to put their name down against various activities, say for seniors, then those things won't happen. And as much as in principle we'd like to do it, we haven't got the people to do it, and so that's where we stand.
My problem is, why then vote for it? We're putting the cart before the horse, in my opinion.
We're not voting for it. What we're doing...
that's what you asked me to do.
No, we are actually affirming these as areas that the congregation would like to commit to. There are many things that will happen between accepting these as principles and developing programs. But if we don't have them as principles in the first place, then we run the risk of losing them.
Jenny.
In that case, from what I've been listening to, could we have in the wording the following aspirational and principal, or what the other word was, but certainly aspirational areas for core ministries, because we want to do it, yeah, does it suit to put in aspirational areas at this point?
Working group, you happy to include that? And
Aspirational for further exploration.
As I guess as one member of both in the working group and panel, I'd be happy to accept that, because that's what we're doing. We will be in the next few minutes exploring those. That describes what we're doing.
okay.
At the moment, we are voting for core ministries, and I cannot vote for that.
Well, we're not. We are actually deciding a way forward, and while many people might understand consensus as being a vote, what we are doing is we are determining the warmth of this body at accepting this as a way forward. And these are weasel words, I know, but we are people on the way. And we are trying to reflect God's goodness to us. It doesn't worry me what we say. So, can somebody please read or say what it is that the proposal that you are going to be considering is? It is at the moment. What does it say?
I think, Bruce, if we said something like recommends to the congregation the following areas of core ministries as aspirational objectives of the congregation with a view to identifying ways of achieving and work further to ways of achieving these.
Thank you. Did you all get that? I can't. I mean, we can't change that. But are you all happy with that description? Yes, John.
Can we just have that can we confirm the exact wording of that? Because this is important to me.
Yes, okay. Craig, could you read what you've recorded, please?
He's still recording it. Something like after the following areas for core ministry as aspirational objectives of this congregation, with a view to, further identifying how we might achieve these, further work on how we might achieve these. Is that something like it? Yeah.
Have you got that, Craig?
I think so.
Could you please read it? We need to, as John has asked, we need to make sure that it is accurately recorded in the minutes. So we'll just get Craig to repeat what he has written down.
See if he can turn my stumbling words into a legitimate sentence.
The recommendation to Church Council.
From the recommendation to the congregation.
Sorry. The working group recommends to the Church Council and the congregation the following areas for core ministries, understanding that they need further exploration to how we might implement these. That's not quite right.
No.
Chris, read it out. Craig, write it down.
Yeah.
Core areas of core ministries as aspirational objectives of this congregation. And then, Craig, you said the next bit quite eloquently.
Can we say something like this?
No. How are you going now, Craig? If you insert as aspirational objectives of this congregation, and then go on to what you just said, please.
With further work required as to how we might explore implementing these.
Yeah.
Yeah, the working group recommends to Church Council and the congregation the following aspirational areas for core ministries, understanding that we need further work on how we might implement these.
Yes, John, you still have a problem.
This is not recommending from Church Council anymore.
No, that's right.
Because so that part of it's not part of the resolution.
Absolutely.
So we need to take that out of the resolution. It is that this congregation accepts these as core ministries.
Can we say something like, this congregation aspires to living out these core areas of ministry, depending on resources that are available?
As an aspirational list.
Yep.
I think we need...
I think the first part is that the congregation accepts the following,
yes,
or agrees to the following.
Yes. Aspirational list subject to...
Yeah. The congregation, that this congregation agrees to the following areas for core ministry, and then the frame of the sentence.
Have you got that down, Craig?
So basically, the congregation accepts these as these core ministries as aspirational objectives, understanding that they need further exploration for how they might be implemented.
Is that okay? Could I please? Did you all hear that? Yes. Who's got a yellow card? Yeah, I've got a yellow card. Yes?
Yeah, I appreciate all of those areas are important, but because of the concern for resources, then would you prioritise any of those areas?
Hopefully, as we go through the next section of the meeting, that prioritisation will be done by this group of people.
Right. Okay.
But you're right. Yep. So, are there any further questions? Can I then ask you to indicate your warmth or otherwise to this proposal to accept? Do we have any blue cards? We have consensus? Yes, we have consensus. Now, I'm going to thanks very much, everybody. I think it's really important that we take time to clarify what it is that we are doing. So, thank you very much for dealing with that. I'm going to ask Bob to spend a time reflecting back to us what he's heard so far before we go on to the next section of the meeting.
Thank you, Bruce. Some quick observations. The finance issue is one of our key factors of concern. The deficit, it's a key factor in our physical life because we live with money and resources because it's a fact and we need things to buy and pay for things. But I also ask us to remember that we worship and we live in the love of God who calls, who leads, and resources. So whilst there is a budget item, there's also a faith and spiritual item in whom we gather and believe. I thank Bruce for his thorough introduction. I think I've heard that the response and the report contains a lot of wisdom, ideas and actions. And The working group's report, and I'm one of them, but the presentation today I'm hearing, what we're looking at today is the raw data that was produced, listened to, discerned, thought about at the last consultation Sunday a few months ago, and other inputs. They are our responses. They're your responses that the group has disseminated, has looked at, has churned over, has collated. They are our responses, our congregational responses that are filtered through the process of the task group's filters, agenda, questions. The working group to allow us, as well written down, to discern and to facilitate and to dream and to vision of who we are and what we might be. And I've written down just two things. One, in a sense, those six, if they were six, were they six core groups? 6 groups, categories, are a collection of an idea of who we are. Not specifically what we're going to do or how, but who we are. The second part of that, I think, comes out in the further papers, the 6 to 18 dot points or the other pages. We then work towards, well, what can we do? And how might we do that? So I also wrote down just a feeling that, I think the word was said last time, this is crunch time, or something rather like that. We're hitting the rubber's on the road. I'm just wondering, I'm going to just put it out there to say, we might not get to everywhere we want to go on the 6 points or the 18 points, or if A plus B equals C, which equates to D, and we hope to get to E, we might not get to E via that route. We might get there by something else. And I just want to, again, remind us that that's the surprise of God. That's the surprise of the spiritual life, or a discerning process, that it's not so much a straight line, but it is a way forward and a way, as I think Bruce said, we are a pilgrim on the way. The Uniting Church says we are always going towards the future. How we get there, that's the process. They're my reflections at the moment, and remembering that, what did I say? Our, us, and we. These are our decisions. These are our ideas. So your ideas, but I'm saying we. So there's no they, there's no them. It's just us. We are discerning this. We're working this through. These are our ideas. These are our dreams.
Right, I'm just getting my bearings amongst all of this. I can see that time is going to be a bit of an issue. We will try to not hurry you too much, but we will keep moving through the process. Some of the discussion that we've had just immediately before this maybe will permeate the consideration of the recommendations. But I would ask you to look at the recommendation as part of what gives the flesh to the core ministries, and the way in which the recommendations unpack how we go about things will involve people. On the basis of the feedback that we get about availability, interest to contribute to that, we will then look at how we can manage it. But I want to avoid, if we can, each clump of recommendations being slowed down with the concern about have we got the people. We have people. We would hope that in the process and down the track, we will gain people. So when you look at them, it's part of the aspirational, but it's part of our step in faith with the community, the church family, being able to work with it. Excuse me. I want to first quickly check the piece of paper, excuse me, the response paper that you've got that has the spring in action at the top. This is the one that you will be able to commit to some things on the way through. It's labelled opportunities for action. You know, we're very aware that life in this church community only works and as rich as it is because people are involved in it. We get behind the goals, the initiatives and the activities that make the community rich. So we want to have, if we can, some assurance of our resources because most of it is done by the church community. So just explaining that piece of paper, as we know, instructions can mean different things to different people. On that piece of paper, there are 2 columns and they sit beside the recommendations that we're going to go through. The A column is there if you are prepared to work as noted in the recommendation to get that up and going, you tick A. If you are willing to be a participant down the track, if there are activities that come from it, you tick B column. I can see some people looking for their paper. You got them? Good. This is going to be slightly complicated because some of the recommendations talk about a group, a subgroup, or council. Just disregard that and tick it if you think you can be involved in some way, either in putting the recommendation up, working on it, or further down the track. It's hard to do a sheet that applies absolutely to everything. Now, as you've heard, we had a huge number of ideas and suggestions. We've done the best we can in some parts. That's unavoidable, but it will work out in the wash. So, in this, we're looking at the appendix. You've got 3 copies on your table, perhaps more, that you can check with it, but they will be up on the screen. We're going... excuse me. We're going to do... Ray? Yes, I am. We're going to do these in 3 sections. The first one are recommendations 1 to 8. No, I take a step back. There is a recommendation that's showing at the top of the appendix which says that all subgroups, teams, persons appointed by Church Council will report to Church Council as otherwise stated. That was a procedural recommendation to put to Church Council. They accepted it. We're just noting it. It's not for us to decide upon. Then we go to the actions, the early actions. Late October, that's being hopeful. November, first week December, then it's Christmas break. But these are the things that might get underway in that time. So we have the recommendations about the netball club. The netball club is a flourishing club, if ever there was one. They have a wide range of people, a lot of know-how about many things. They're successful. They also are big users of our property and have had a particular relationship over many years. But we want to talk with them. It's a recommendation towards that end. The second one is about advertising. We are concerned to lift our advertising capacity, and there are a number of ways that are shown in that recommendation. We want to look further at hiring property and other assets. This is looking at an expansion of the group that deals with it at the moment and going further to recognise that we do have assets here that we're not gaining from at the moment. All of this is trying to increase our income, which has the effect of reducing the deficit. That's the rationale of a lot of these. You've heard reference to the Darwoody Bora community. This is to firm that up, get clearer groundwork with them and relationship. Out of the feed-in at the consultation, suggestions about future use of cooker, we want to start exploring that. It's a very good facility up there, but it's not being used to its fullest potential, and there may be new ways of dealing with it. There's a strong suggestion from a group about refurbishment of the main foyer and the passage, that what we have looks tired, uninviting. It could be that the group's coming in for Keep Fit, for example, twice a week, bring other people, find it attractive, perhaps have self-service coffee biscuits or something, and other people get to us. We have very active people seeking grants, but it's to try to take that a bit further and recognise the importance of that part of our income. Also, a recommendation will come up later in the third section to talk with local councils to get data, demographics and the sort of information of what the councils are wanting to develop in the area. So that is that clump of recommendations. What we'd like you to do is this. In your table group, for a brief time, I emphasise brief because time is running out, to discuss those recommendations, identify any questions about them, resolve them in the table group if you can, because you do have a mix of people in your table who operate in various parts of that already. We want you to then see your table's degree of warmth for this, and we'll take a straw look around at the warmth of table groups and perhaps any unresolved questions. Then we'll come back to the whole group. The facilitators have their act in order, I think, for this, and we are very grateful to our facilitators to keep this on track. So if you could do those things, we'll call a halt to it and we'll do a quick check around after it. So, about 5 minutes. Thank you. you, but Thanks, Ray. I am sorry to interrupt you, but I must. Time is ticking away. Somebody finishing a sentence? Right, let's get into this check around the tables for warmth or otherwise. This table over here, Brian?
I'm sorry, we're having great difficulty on the... Thank you, John. Your legs will be strong. Thank you, Mary. Our general opinion here is that we have great difficulty looking at anybody putting a tick in A and B just on the broad areas we're talking about. Our feeling is that as our church is at the moment, we're an ageing community, and a very high percentage of the numbers that are here may or may not have the time or focus to cover the whole array of what we're talking about, even picking one or two items. It appears to us that the actions that everybody is saying needs to be done cannot be covered by the focus of the numbers of people that we have available to us in this hall today.
Thanks, Brian. I think that that's a very important point, and I think that that's something that we are struggling with and we need to continue to struggle with. We are what we are, and it is this and that stuff is what was said and what was discovered at the first consultation. If we can do it, we can do it. If we can't, then we need to find out that we can't and start to make other arrangements. What we're wanting from this group and from others as they respond in other ways at other times is to see whether you have a heart or time or talent to put some effort into one or all of those areas. If there are no ticks, well, that's something that will fall by the side. But if there are ticks, and there are enough ticks, then we can do something about it. No doubt we are small in number here, but it only takes a spark to make a fire go, and all we need is one or two people who are prepared to commit some time and effort to these areas. We don't expect everybody to tick every box. That would be silly, it would be unwise, but we do want to find. What we're doing now is reflecting back to you what it is that you said at the last consultation. And we really do need, as has been said on a number of different on a number of different occasions and in a number of different ways, this is where we actually need to see whether the aspirations are followed up by actions. And if we don't have actions, then we need to find another way of being the people of God in this place, or indeed the people of God in another place. But really, what we're wanting to do, and I'm not trying to make things difficult, and I've gone off script. Sorry about that, but we really do need to find out whether there are people who are prepared to put their names down against one or some of these areas. Does that make sense? So, yellow card.
Bruce, I'm fully in tune with what you are suggesting we're doing. I think that's incredibly valuable. So that it's clear what the results mean, there's a couple of things in my mind. If I were to put down 3 ticks, for example, but I'm willing to do one of them, we don't want the church council to interpret, oh, that's resources for 3 things. And there's also something about the level of effort that's not in here. So I'm just wondering how effectively these ticks will communicate the actual level of ability?
Well, I'll make a statement, and others can pull me down. We only want your tick in the box if you have got time and talent to do something for that box. If you don't, if you think it's a good idea, you've already said that by the fact that it's on the list. Okay? What we're wanting is if you tick, you are saying, yes, I can do something about this. Is that reasonable enough? Yep. Bob.
I think I can add something to that says, I'm sure we will talk with you, somebody will talk with you about your level of why you ticked it. Do you just want to interested in it? Are you want to lead it? Are you committing 100 hours to it? Or I'm just happy to be a part of a group that looks at it. That's where the ticks. I hear your point, I take it. 3 ticks doesn't mean I'm going to do everything. It means I'm interested, and then we'll go, where are you interested, and what level, etc. Is that...
Interested in putting some time into it, not just interested in thinking...
interested in doing something about that, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the whole point of collecting your names is so that you can be talked, that conversations can be had, and so clarification can be achieved. There are, as we've already said, there are a number of steps that will need to be taken, but what we're trying to do now is to see whether the first step can be taken. Does that make sense? Now, Mary, I'm sorry,
Yellow card.
Yes.
I just would like to say I'm a bit concerned about the time, as everybody else is probably. I don't know why we have to discuss all of this again in tables. I have already filled out what I feel willing to do on both of the 2 different things, and now we have to talk about stuff. I mean, I've done the job. That's just my comment from...
Right, okay. Thank you for that, Christine. It's a very valuable comment. Do we want to go that way? I mean, this is your meeting. Do you feel that you've got enough information, having participated in different ways with Consultation 1, having received the information in a number of different forms, having considered and consulted the appendix, are you in a position as individuals to say yes to 1 through 18 and 19? And we can then, as a working group, get the names of people that have filled it out, and we can be in touch with people. How are you? How do you warm to that? Can I see your card? Have you got any questions? They're all warm to that?
I see no blue.
So to just be clear,
It's 12:19.
It's 20 past 12. This is really important. But if you feel that you are able to respond effectively and articulate your willingness to be involved in in any of the areas 1 through to 19, I'm really happy. Are we happy for people to do that now?
Question?
Yes.
Or more input?
Yes.
For me, just to be clear on that, you don't have to put a tick on anything. We're not asking you to make a tick when you don't want to. By not ticking is also making a response. That, no, I'm not interested or able to be involved in 1 or 18 of those. Or I am and I will in 1 or 18 of those things. So by not writing your name at the top, then not ticking anything, that's fine. We're not asking you to do something you don't want to do.
We are only interested in finding out whether we can take the first step. Yes, Bob. Yes, John.
I'm not sure what this is, a question, clarification or what, but if
can we just listen, everybody?
Going down this path then, to me, makes the moving of the rest of the resolutions irrelevant, because the moving of those resolutions depends upon the results of the A-B options. Because I don't see how we can move that we're in support of something until we know we have the resources to do it.
Well, that's what we're doing. We're actually trying to get the information about whether we've got the resource, whether we can take the first step. These recommendations, these 19 recommendations, were distilled from the consultation and the responses after the consultation, and they are aspirational, and they.
No, I don't believe they are aspirational at this point.
Well, what are they?
They are deliberate decisions. We are being asked to actually commit to something as a congregation.
No, we're being asked to commit to something as individuals.
No, that is wrong in the resolution.
In what way is it wrong, John?
A resolution that we're passing here is the church in action. What we're being asked to fill out on our forms is us in person. Personally, I believe we're better off asking everyone to fill these in, get the results of those back, and then bring the resolutions forward.
Well,
we are jumping the gun.
Well, in fact, I thought that's what I'd said we were going to be doing.
Well, who's going to collate all the information?
Well, the working group will continue to work unless there are other people who have been prepared to help.
But what I'm saying is we can't move those resolutions today.
No, and in fact...
Well, that's what I was saying.
Yeah. That's right. These are recommendations that come as a consequence. And these are recommendations, and they are to be considered for individual response. We are not moving any resolutions. Well, I mean,
Bruce, I have a...
Yep. Yes, Bob.
My understanding is that we are not talking about recommendations here at the moment. We're talking about a process of not discussing in table groups any more about the information, but it was suggested that we individually take time, or we already have indicated on our sheets, and therefore we don't need to discuss them. That's what I think. This is what we're showing cards about, is that process, not anything beyond that at this moment. Is that what other people think? That's what I thought we were showing warmth to move on, to save time on that particular thing that Christine raised. We've already filled it out. Let's just hand them up. Is that what we're saying? So I
Can I see your warmth or otherwise as individuals recording your preparedness to participate in any of those recommendations? Okay, if you could put your name at the top of the card of the sheet, and then indicate your willingness to participate in any or all of those 19 areas, that would be greatly appreciated. Sorry, this is an organic process. The working group and council did not know where we were going to get, and we're not even sure how we're going to get there. But what we're trying to do is to give you an opportunity to indicate how you might help the community that is Morialta Uniting Church to move along the way. The question has been asked, can we hand these in at another time? Look, we are in your hands. Right? If you are able to fill them in now, then could you please give them to the table facilitator? If you need more time, then by all means take them home and consider with the recommendations and bring them back next week. Yes, Brian.
We have 2 lots of papers. Everybody can hear. We have 2 lots of papers, a little tiny yellow one and a big white one. Do you want us to fill both? Because they seem to repeat each other.
No, they don't. Fill in both, please. The orange golden opportunity paper is for you to indicate whether you are prepared to participate in the present structure. The white paper is whether you are able to give time and talents to a future. Yes?
Am I on mic?
You go. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. Ray, could you mic Mary, please?
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Good. Could I have your attention for 1 minute? That third group of, what have we called it, projects, partnerships, focus on. The recommendation there was for a small group to look at the total of that. The first part is forerunner, things that we would need to know about to go further with the second part. The second part has various organisations or possibilities in it that came from the consultation. If you have particular knowledge, experience, connection, know something about any of those, would you please make a note to that effect? Because even if you're not part of the small group, you would be very important as reference people to help the small group. So, is that clear? If you've got some connection or you know, or from your past experience, you can add. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Do we need any more time? Are there any more questions? So to recap, if you have been able to indicate your preparedness and you've put your name on it, if you could give it to your table facilitators. If you need more time, could you please consider it prayerfully at home and bring it back next week. Are there any other questions? I'll just before I go on to the final, the concluding parts of the meeting, I might I might call upon Bob to speak into the life of the meeting and to provide his reflections on the last part. Thank you.
Do you want them? Okay. I'm feeling and I'm hearing frustration and uncertainty. And I think that was particularly picked up when we started asking for table groups and table group number 1. And I wrote down ageing community, time focus, etc., to do. And following discussion and, so I'm hearing and feeling frustration and uncertainty. I want to say that that's difficult. Sorry, it is difficult because change into an unknown future is difficult. But we have lived with a long history of tradition and experience. There were some people here who've had, I'm going to guess, 80 years of being in this church. They were here as a baby, or 84, thanks. I was close. And to the relatively newcomer me, who's had 5 years' experience in this church. I try not to use the word but, since I listened to in a movie a couple of weeks ago, it said anything that is said after the word but, makes what was said before irrelevant. So I love you all, but. However's the same. So I'm feeling and hearing frustration and concern, but it's okay because we are moving into, and COVID, let's not just go back and blame COVID for everything, has forced everybody into a new world, into a new way of doing things in society. It has hurried up things. It has hurried up the ageing process. It has hurried up. It has also made visible signs of cracks in walls that we didn't know was there. We're going through now, again, I talk from ministers' meetings, feeling that we're going through now what we should have been going through maybe 10 years' time. Does that make sense? Like, it's hurried up. It's like when you get to October, the year just seems to go, and it's Christmas, downhill. But, and life is more complex. Life is more complex now than it was. Even 10 years ago or 50 years ago. We're now talking insurance levies that have skyrocketed and will continue to do so. We're talking about buildings that are ageing, or smaller or larger congregations, or we're all getting older, and etc., etc. It's more complex and more uncertain, but it is exciting. We are still in exciting days, and that's the preacher in me. How do we... I wish I could read my own writing. How do we draw back to our faith, understanding and knowledge and our experience of the triune God, of God, Father, Mother, Creator, Son, Redeemer, Friend, Jesus, Holy Spirit, life, breath of God? And I wanted to write down the Exodus. Moses and the Exodus. Do you think people on the night of the Exodus had a committee meeting to decide to leave? No, they just did it because they had to, and they learnt it along the way, and they got to the promise, and they spent 40 years in the wilderness. Now, I'm not sure what that means, but it is exciting, and it is challenging, and it is different, and I'm hearing that it's hard, that you are saying, and I'm feeling it in my bones, that I'm older and I can't, and I'm unable. That's fine. We want to go somewhere into the future that you don't know what that is. Sorry, this is a long reflection. we're also setting up something that you won't live with. The reality is, a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, some of us will be moved on from now. I'll leave it as that. But you know what I mean? Like a 20-year plan, exactly. So, but we have a legacy. And I wanted to also write down one thing. When we talk about our property, I'd like us to use the word, I would like to speak into that and suggest that we use the word the property, this property, because it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the church, it belongs to the community. It belongs to the Uniting Church Property Fund. Okay, we are stewards, we are caretakers, but it's in our mission statement for our properties to be usable for the wider community. What does that mean? Interfaith, multi-faith, fitness groups, etc. So it's going back to the us, the we, and our, and not a them or those people. It's us. So this property, the property. That's my reflection. But it's all good.
Do you know that? Can you play God Gives Us a Future? Anne?
Sure she can.
Yep. I think we've sung it long enough and well enough. You can hum along if you like, but I'm going to ask you that we actually sit in our seats, stand if you like, but it's not happy birthday, but let's sing God Gives Us a Future. We brought Wallace because we thought it was a long time, and he's an inside dog, even more so now. He's got a mass tumour on his nose that hopefully will be cut out, but it's not exactly fantastic. But he seems to think it's all right.
It is malignant.
Pardon? It's malignant, yeah. Are we ready? Now I'm going to take my microphone off.
We do now, because you've got 3 people who are going to sing it.
Are we doing verse 2 now?
Oh no, let's start with verse 1. We'll do it.
I'm going to start it again.
Say again. That was just a warm-up. God gives us a future, daring us to go into dreams and dangers on a path unknown. We will face tomorrow in the Spirit's power. We will let God change us, for new life starts now. We must leave behind us sins of yesterday, for God's new beginning is a better way. Fear and doubt and habit
Thank you for that, and thank you for allowing that. As Bob said, this is new, and it's not something that other congregations aren't facing, and arguably it's likely to be much more difficult in other congregations than it is with us. But we are fortunate because we are people of the way, and wherever we go, there will be the presence of God with us. I don't know whether you know anything about that, the footprints in the sand. But the footprints in the sand story reading is something that means a lot to me, because it is through the actions of others and our belief in a living God where we get support. Anyway, enough of that. We are nearly at the end of this meeting. It didn't go where perhaps we thought it might, but it went where you led it. There are 2 pieces of paper, a gold and a white piece of paper, which we would be pleased if you had your name on it and filled out according to your wishes. If you need further time and would like to bring it back next week, that's fine. The information that is collected will be collated. People will be consulted, and so that is really important for you to know. Also importantly, if you leave here and upon reflection or encouragement from others feel that you might have some energy to commit to areas that you didn't tick, please let us know. Are there any questions? Helena is over here. She's got some tickets for the choir concert. The market is coming up on the 19th of November, and I would hope that people are propagating and will cook and will do other things to support that. Is there anything else for the benefit of this community that needs to be shared now before I ask Bob to announce the benediction? Can I thank the working group on your behalf? The work that has been done and the information that has been shared, while it has been large and it's been complex, we've tried to simplify it down. And so, working group, grateful thanks for all that you've done, for all that you will continue to do, and on behalf of the congregation, can I say thanks? If you feel inclined at the end of the meeting, your assistance in moving the tables and putting the chairs back would be greatly appreciated. But if in the absence of any other information, recognising that there will be yet further detail and time for us to consider our future together, I'll ask Bob to announce the benediction. Okay, come on, over here, come on.
And just another word of affirmation, we're not done yet. We do have a future, and that future is before us and in exciting ways and times, I believe. So with that, and I am grateful to be among you to help journey that through with this congregation. So may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the great love of God, and the fellowship and the excitement of the Holy Spirit be with us and you forevermore until we meet again. Amen.